Kandit News.
With many accolades and celebrations.
Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.
Head on over to Cold Stone for that classic soda shop feel, but make it with ice cream. Try Cold Stone Guam's new limited time creation or float today. That's the root beer revival creation with root beer ice cream, chocolate chips, caramel, and whipped topping. Or go with the float with root beer ice cream, root beer, whipped topping, and a maraschino cherry. Only here for a limited time, so visit them at their Micronesia Mall or GPO locations today. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
It's me, Wednesday Addams. I regret to inform you that I have devised the meal of misfortune with Wendy's. Normally, I'd be against this type of capitalistic corporate synergy. But when the other pigtailed provocateur said I could concoct my own Frosty, I melted. My meal is tribute to the suffering that awaits us all. It's pure torture for your taste buds, with 4 nightmarish dips of dread. Don't waste my time asking which ones you'll get. You must surrender to your fate. Enjoy the anguish.
Dare to try? Something new? Life's too short!
You gotta chill with the snackable drink.
Life is too short. Hey, you gotta chill.
Mogu Mogu.
Moku Moku! Kandit News is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Good evening, my dear friends. It is 7:21 p.m. on Tuesday. Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. My name is Troy Torres, and I've got a big smile on my face because when I can, especially in the beginning of the show while I'm running the commercials, whenever people on the live stream comment, hello, good evening. Normally it's hello, good evening, hi, Troy. How are you doing, Kandit, or whatever, right? So I automatically love, and I was right about to love, Pete, I was right about to love what you said. You said, Biba Guam, and I was like, Biba Guam, and corruption. And then I saw recall Dougie Boy, and I was like, I'm not getting involved in that, Pete. Oh, my friend. I'm not going to be seen loving that. Oh, my love, Johnny Rosario. I love you. And Pete, I love you too. Even though I don't put a heart there, just know I love you too. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I know this is not going to be one of those exciting Tenorio corruption case stories or video editorials that I do, but there are other things that happen in this island, and a very important thing that is not happening in this island is the construction of a new hospital. It's a very important thing that has not happened over the past 20 years when it should have happened. And there's a whole lot of history that goes into this. And both political parties are full of BS and are the reasons that because of their fighting, because of their pride, because of their grandstanding, because one party doesn't want the governor of the other party to get a win, whether it's a Republican governor or a Democrat governor. And who's left to suffer? We are. And so when the Republicans in the legislature, and I admire the bold stances the Republicans in the legislature have been taking on certain things. I wish they would take a much more bold stance on the corruption that's being uncovered within the administration, because they have direct oversight, ability, and authority over all of the agencies throughout the government of Guam. And I really I don't know why the Republicans are not doing more with their oversight responsibilities, because I guarantee you, many of us who voted for a majority of Republicans thought that we were voting for them because they were going to hold the administration's feet to the test of accountability and transparency. And it's happening with some things, but this is corruption. This is the biggest thing. This Tenorio corruption is a big thing, right? It's not happening. And on the issue of, so they issued a bold statement today, and I admire that it's bold. I just have mixed feelings about it. I want to hear your opinions. I want to see whatever public hearing comes about and whatever comments people have, because I want to learn more about where everyone's coming from. But, I also have experience in the government, and I have watched this failure of the government of Guam to build a new hospital for the past 20 years. And so when I see things, they are recognizable to me as certain things. And I hope I'm wrong. So and it's not just the Republicans, actually, it's the Republicans and Democrats in the legislature. It's really the Democrats who don't like the administration, and a few of the Republicans. It's not all of the Republicans either. But here, let me just read you their news release that they sent out today, okay? It's called Guam Legislature Unites to Urge Immediate Action on Hospital Crisis. The subhead is Resolution 93 calls for reallocation of ARPA funds to stabilize Guam Memorial Hospital. And this is what the Republicans and the Democrats who signed on to this bipartisan resolution say. In a decisive bipartisan move, the 38th Guam Legislature has introduced a resolution urging the Treasury Department and the Trump administration to authorize the reallocation of existing American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funds toward urgent infrastructure repairs at Guam Memorial Hospital. The resolution responds to escalating safety concerns following a recent electrical fire and HVAC failure in GMH's pediatrics ward. Quote, "When the governor refuses to lead, we will," Senator Chris Duenas said. "Our job is to protect the people of Guam. If reallocating these funds saves even one life, then it is not only justified, it will be the only responsible course of action. She may ignore the cries from our people, but we will not. The reality is that our only public hospital is in crisis today, not 10 years from now. We must act now." That's a quote from Senator Chris Duenas, okay? The resolution is introduced by Senators Chris Duenas and Jesse Lujan, along with strong bipartisan co-sponsorship by Speaker Frank Blas, Vice Speaker Tony Yada, Senator Sabrina Salas-Matsanani, who's the chairwoman of the Health Committee, Senator Vince Borja, Senator Shango Mitsaltal, Senator Chris Barnett, and Senator Sabina Perez. It emphasizes, I'm continuing on with the news release, and it emphasizes that GMH is the island's sole public hospital and a critical component of America's health security in the Indo-Pacific. It highlights the hospital's role in serving not only the people of Guam, but also COFA migrants, U.S. military personnel, and their families. Quote, it is absolute nonsense to let our people and our visitors suffer in a crumbling hospital while millions of dollars sit tied up in bureaucratic red tape. They're talking about the ARPA funds that the governor has slated for the new hospital. This is not a complicated solution. Senator Lujan says it's common sense. We fix what's broken now, we save lives now, and we build for tomorrow when the time comes. Anything less is political theater at the expense of our people, end quote. The resolution has garnered support from both sides of the aisle, reflecting a shared commitment to fiscal responsibility, public safety, and national readiness. It calls for immediate upgrades to GMH's electrical, HVAC, IT, and safety systems areas identified as dangerously outdated and vulnerable. Senator Sabrina Salas Matsanani, chairwoman of the Committee on Health, further added, quote, I agree we need a new hospital, but GMH is already in crisis. The new facility is years away, while our current hospital is one step from disaster. We must act now to repair the hospital that is saving lives today, end quote. Once passed, copies of the resolution will be transmitted to President Trump, key federal agencies, and Guam's executive leadership. This is a substantive resolution, so according to the rules of the legislature, there must be a public hearing on it, and so I'm sure it's going to be whatever committee it goes to, there's going to be the scheduling of a public hearing and all this stuff, right? I want to break this down and break this apart and share with you my concerns about this. I don't think any of us are going to disagree that, oh man, Pete, that's such a good point. I'm going to read that in a second. Tim Couts, that's such a great point. I'll read these in a second, okay? I don't think anyone who is sane is going to disagree that we need to fund current GMH repairs right now. I don't think that anybody who has the ability to reason with common sense and who has been following the news, who has lived in this island for the past, I don't know how many years, and understood the need for a refurbished or a brand new Guam Memorial Hospital facility is going to disagree that we need a new facility. I think we have to establish these things, that there should be general agreement among reasonable people. Gotta fix GMH quickly. Needed to happen a long time ago, as a matter of fact. And secondly, we do need a new hospital. And then there are all of these different things in between that, because it isn't just the facilities. It's also the how we allow people to practice here through either the Guam Board of Medical Examiners or the Guam Nursing Board, et cetera, et cetera. It also involves accountability and transparency and reporting of malpractice that happens over at Guam Memorial Hospital to the National Malpractice, whatever that registry is called. It also involves, a peer review process over at GMH that isn't mired in corruption. It also involves, the maintenance of facilities. It also involves Dr. Mike Cruz, the former Lieutenant Governor of Guam, currently the Adjutant General, he wrote this great piece about how it's important that a new hospital is preceded by fixing the management issues over at Guam Memorial Hospital. That's another great point. All of these things, these things don't exist without each other. It's not that one thing is more important than the other, or that one thing, must be done and, we don't need to do all of these other things, that this one thing is done. All of these things need to be done. And all of our elected officials have a role and a responsibility in all of this. And we have to stop with this hyperbole and this language that's happening between the administration and the legislature that is just so hypersensitive. It is, it blames it. And I get it, people need to understand where the problems are and where the problems started and how we can fix things or whatever. But at a certain level, it's childish when you have these barbs being thrown back and forth. And I'll tell you, this has been going on since at least the Calvo administration. And I was in the midst of that when Governor Eddie Calvo was trying to build a new hospital. The Republican governor, Eddie Calvo, was trying to build a new hospital. It was this big thing in his second term. It's all he wanted to do. But the Democrat legislature wouldn't let him do it. They didn't want him to have a win. It was as simple as that. And I really hope that's not what's happening right now. I really hope this isn't about the Republicans not Democrat Governor Lou Leongro to have a win, because folks who are elected into office, Democrat and Republican, this ain't about you guys or you're Democrat or you're Republican or whatever. It's about us and where we're going to get treatment someday. And it ain't looking good right now. And so there's this pot of money, this ARPA funds. The Governor Leongro it's been in the bank for a few years now. Ever since she got it, she's been stowing it away. Matter of fact, it was even more money, but she has used it for different things because of, I'm going to say, political expediency. There were things that she needed to get done before the 2022 re-election, so she had to dip into that pot so that, my guess was to help her re-election. I wasn't in the room. I didn't hear the conversation, so I'm just guessing a lot of those funds were used to feather her cap so that she could have a better chance at re-election. And then certain funds were used after that in order to, I can't remember exactly what it was for, but let's just chalk it up to political expediency. So there's a certain amount of money left in the pot. It must be liquidated by December 31 this year. The last time we talked to Crystal Paco San Augustine about this money and to Fernando Esteves about this money, this money was supposed to be earmarked. And they were supposed to find a way to liquidate this, probably through GIDA or at least through some sort of, for lack of a better term, interagency memoranda or like a trusteeship within the government of Guam, a liquidation through a third party so that GPA and GWA could eventually be paid for the costs of the infrastructure upgrades to the Fidian land so that land can be prepared, the foundation can be prepared for the new GMH, okay? They're supposed to use that money for that. That money is supposed to go to new. This is like when the governor, laid the groundwork for this to happen a few months ago. It was like, wow, this is finally going to happen. This is actually going to happen. And then all this Josh Tenorio stuff happened. And then any of us who were like, wow, we really want this. We really hope that the governor can get whatever she needs done through the legislature for a hospital. Everyone was like, oh boy, this one's going to be troubling for the governor. Let's see if she can muster up the political capital for this, right? Because let's face it, this administration is damaged because of what the lieutenant governor has done and all that stuff that's going on over there, right? But we're not here to talk about that. But it's part of the whole thing. It's part of the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah, these are part of the political realities, right? And so you have this money. It's supposed to go to new GMH. At the beginning of this term, the chairwoman on health, Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanay, she took a bunch of senators and the media, and we went on this tour of Guam Memorial Hospital. And the folks over at GMH, they were showing where all the problems were. They were supposed to provide, because Sabrina Salas, I think it was Vince Borja who asked, or it was Shelly Calvo or Vince Borja. One of them asked, send us a list of the things that absolutely need to be done between now and the time a new hospital is built, say, 5 to 10 years from now. All the stuff that needs to be done just right now. A list of that and how much it's going to cost so that we can figure it out over the legislature. I don't know if those senators ever got that list from GMH. I do know that GMH tried to send over the Army Corps of Engineers report, which showed an $800 million replacement cost, which is not what those senators asked for. And I feel like people's thinking caps over at GMH weren't working when they thought that they should send that over. I don't know what that was about. But the senators were pretty clear. Like, okay, you need a new electrical panel. How much is that electrical panel going to cost? What's your estimate? You need a new maternity ward. How much is that? What's the estimate of that cost? Or you need to do some mold mitigation throughout the hospital. How much is it going to cost wing by wing? And what's the timeline? That's the sort of stuff that those senators were asking for. I don't know that they ever got those answers, right? But the can gets kicked down the line. And the senators, they have their budget session. It's very, very involved. It's very contentious, very controversial, right? And then in the middle of all of that, there's a fire at GMH. And then the GMH issues rear their ugly head again. And then the senators close out the budget. They vote on it. They pass it. They send it to the governor. And then a new tour of GMH about the problems over at GMH. And this time the lieutenant governor joins along. I don't know what kind of a smart idea it was to bring the lieutenant governor in on something like that. But anyway, right? And so there's a new tour by Senator Salas Matsanani. The lieutenant governor goes along. And now you've got this resolution from a few of the most of the Republican senators, and 2 Democrat senators, a bipartisan resolution. And these senators are asking the federal government, the Trump administration, to yank those funds away from the savings account that the governor has placed it in for the new hospital and use it for repairs at the current hospital. Taking all of that seed money away from the new hospital and placing this whole new hospital thing in limbo without providing a financial solution, a replacement of funds for that, without these same senators telling, at least in some kind of letter or maybe even in an interview, where do they plan on replacing, how do they plan on replacing that money? Are they going to allow for the floating of a short-term loan, a bond? Are they going to raise taxes? Are they going to dedicate funds from somewhere else in order to replace that? Are they going to replace that money at all? And we're back to square one as a people if this happens, because we're going to be in the same place that we were back in 2015 when Eddie Calvo started his hospital renovation or rebuilding committee, and the Democrats wouldn't give him an inch for the rest of his second term in office. For all of his second term in office, they said no, and we never got to start on the building of a new hospital. And then all of these years that Lulian Guerrero has been in office, and all the time that she said, I want to build a new hospital, and every time that she's tried to build a new hospital, and the people who are in power over the legislature, whether they are Democrats who don't like her or Republicans who are in charge now, are marching to this tune of the same tune that the Democrats marched when Eddie Calvo was in office of, we're not going to give you this win. And so what are we left with? No new hospital. What are we spending money on? That endless pit that is Guam Memorial Hospital. And granted, that place does need those fixes. Absolutely. There does need to be repairs that are made, major repairs that are made over at GMH. But I need to ask this because we're being critical here, right? We are, if these senators have a replacement for that money that they want the Trump administration to take away from that pot, from the new hospital, if they have a replacement, fine. Hey, I get it. Your plan makes sense, senators. Yes, we're going to fix the immediate issues because there are emergent and urgent needs over at current GMH right now. So go ahead, use that pot of money, that ARPA funds, just as long as you have the replacement for those funds, because we also need to be building a new hospital, because we can't keep kicking this can down the road. But I'm not seeing that right now. What all I'm seeing is an attempted grab of this money away from the new hospital to fund the issues at the old hospital. And you know what else I'm seeing in this context is, if this was so damn important to the senators, if the repairs needed at GMH, and this is not something that they just found out after the budget, this is something that we as a community have all known about for years. This is something this legislature has known about since it started in January of this year, that all those repairs needed to be made, all that investment needed to be made into GMH. Why the hell didn't these senators put that into the budget? Because the budget's their job. It's not Lulian Guerrero's job. It's their job. If this was so important, why didn't this happen 2 weeks ago in the budget? And if the answer is, oh, there's no money in the budget, for the heck, there's none. There's $1.3 billion, senators. It's a matter of prioritizing. And in case you didn't know, that's your job too. We elected you guys to do that. So if you're trying to take $120 million out of this pot that's supposed to be for new GMH, why didn't you carve that out of the $1.3 billion? It ain't even 10% of the budget. Where is the political will to do so? Because, hey, and I'll tell you what your guys' priority was, because it wasn't these repairs at GMH, not in the budget. According to that budget that you guys just passed, your priorities were, and I'm not saying that these are wrong. But I am pointing out that these were your priorities and they were not GMH repairs. Your priorities were tax cuts, pay for the government of Guam, multi-millions of dollars for contracts that government of Guam agencies have throughout the private sector, to include very questionable contracts for which you guys still have not scheduled an oversight hearing to look into the corruption of the administration and into certain contracts. And an $11 million subsidy to the airlines. Those were your priorities. They were not GMH repairs. And now you're going to cry to the president to take that money away from the new hospital so that you have a funding source, an easy way out of your jobs to prioritize those funds for GMH. I'm upset about it because I've seen this happen. This is how good things get killed. This happened to Eddie Calvo, and some of these senators, you were my co-workers when we were trying to build a new hospital under the Calvo administration. Now, my criticism isn't reserved just for these senators tonight, okay? let me turn my attention now to Governor Lulian Guerrero, because, and I haven't talked about this yet, and I'm actually going to write an editorial about this because I have very strong feelings about this. So, was it over the weekend? Yeah, over the weekend, the governor called the legislature into session for a couple of bills, right? And essentially, the governor wants all this power. She wants powers that will harken back to her emergency public health powers. The governor wants to get rid of every obstacle in her way to building a new hospital. And I just talked about how much I agree with building a new hospital, right? I really do not agree with the way the governor wants to do it. I think it is cuckoo bananas that the governor even thinks for a second that the administration should be given all of that power over all of that money after we all, as an island, went through the June 25, 2025 federal indictments of people connected to the top levels of Adelup. Corruption, and all the corruption that's been uncovered ever since then. And the governor has the audacity to ask the legislature to give her more power, almost complete authority, over the use of federal and local funds of what is estimated to be a more than $1 billion project, the start of a more than $1 billion project, removing all checks and virtually all checks and balances. I don't know. Governor, you might be an honest lady, but obviously there are people in your administration who have done really bad things who you didn't catch. And how are we supposed to believe that you're going to be able to catch these people when they're trying to steal from all this hospital money? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And so when the senators, they were like, oh, let's have a public hearing about this, to hear what the public has to say. I see that's an example of like, wow, you senators, like you go bold on some things, but like on things that really matter, I mean, you're tripping all over yourselves, right? Like these senators should have just said, no, governor, We're not gonna. Are you kidding? Are you crazy? Matter of fact, we're scheduling some oversight hearings and investigations over the use of federal funds in your administration during the pandemic era. You're gonna ask us for authority to use federal funds and local funds like it was being used during the pandemic era over a much more expensive project? No, Governor. That's what the senators should have said during that session. They should be like, no, 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 no. I don't know if that's 15 no's, but it should have been like that. I don't know, my friends. You know, for me, this has... I'm not trying to be Lulian Guerrero's friend or Chris Duenas' friend or Chris Barnett's friend or Josh Norio's friend. I don't care. I think, like all reasonable people, I just want our government to get its act together to actually repair GMH and to build a new hospital. I think those are two very important things. And all of the stuff that needs to be fixed in between those two things, like the management at GMH, the revenue collections at GMH, the maintenance schedule, the accreditation of the facility, the credentialing of doctors and nurses, how malpractice is treated, peer review, all of those things need to be fixed together. And it is absolutely the role, the responsibility, the duty of our senators and the governor to deliver on all of these things. And haven't we waited enough? Haven't we waited long enough for senators, both Democrat and Republican, for governors, both Democrat and Republican, to fix this stuff? And here we are with the same name calling, the same fighting. All right, so there were a couple of comments here that I thought were, where is that? Tim Count says, the only thing they can ever agree on is giving raises. You're absolutely right, Tim. Because in ever since Mike Nicholas secured all that money, remember from the pandemic era, and all the increases, the annual increases in federal funding, whether it was the EIC reimbursement, the Medicaid reimbursement rate going up, all of these are annual. They provided annual increases in revenue to the government of Guam, cash flow, significant amounts of additional cash flow since the pandemic era because of what Mike Nicholas did. And the administration bashes it. They're like, oh, that was all formula stuff. The complete BS from the Leon Tenorio administration about Mike Nicholas's accomplishments. But anyway, I'm not going to go down that road. That's neither here nor there for this conversation. But ever since then, and when the administration and Democrats and Republican senators all bowed down before the election in order to feed that cash cow, called the government of Guam workforce and pay raises. You have not heard a peep out of any of these senators or the governor's office about how much that has taken up in revenues ever since then. It's really the only thing that Democrats and Republicans agree with. But if they're going to bicker and try to tell us in the public that they are the ones who are trying to find, we Republicans are the ones who are trying to find the money for the GMH, while the Democrats at Adelup they don't care about the emergencies there, or the Democrats in Adelup saying we are the ones trying to provide solutions for GMH, while the Republicans, they just want to cut taxes. You remind all of them they could fund GMH if they rolled back the pay raises. But they're not going to say that. They're not. Because they don't have the political courage. They don't have the fortitude to say something like that, even though they know it's right. Pete Santa says, when my kids fight over something, I take it away. Sadly, I predict that is what will occur. Pete, that is such a great observation. I really hope that the authors of this resolution have at least spoken with the federal establishment, and that people in the Trump administration were the ones that were like, yeah, why don't you guys send us a resolution, and so that we can act on it, and hope that they weren't being disingenuous and using that as a pretext, using this as a pretext to yank the funding. Because, I mean, the Trump administration has been yanking funding left and right. What are they going to care about our need for hospital funding? So, Pete, I think that's a great point that you're making. Dave Lebowski says, senators are being childish to write to Trump, even though their justification for GMH old is warranted versus new. It's like my kids going to their grandparents to make a request how I spend money on them. Yeah, Dave, you're absolutely right. Same point that Pete's making. You're absolutely right. Pete says it was Democrat senators who obstructed the governor at the hospital. It was when the Democrats, you're talking about Therese Terlahi, Chris Barnett, Sabina Perez. You're talking about when they were in charge of the legislature, but now the Republicans are in charge of the legislature. And up till now, I really thought that the Republicans were going to help the governor to build this new hospital. But I guess because they're facing this political reality of, old GMH is falling apart, they got to do something about it, rather than making the tough decisions within the confines of the budget or tax policy. They're like, all right, there's this pot of money over here. Let's go get it. And you know what? I don't want to completely, I just want to leave this at scrutiny and leave my opinion about them open, because maybe they do have a solution to replace that funding that they want to take from that pot of money that the governor stowed away for the new hospital. Maybe they do have a bill for some type of a short-term loan in order to put in that pot, I don't know, or a line of credit that the governor can take out in order to pay GPA and GWA or whatever, right? Like, so maybe there is that, but it wasn't accompanying this resolution. So, I'm going to have to ask those questions, and I'm going to have to remain critical of this proposal by these Republicans and Democrats who've introduced this resolution. Tim Kaut says, all the elected officials do not care about GMH because they will never go there for care, just like they don't care about public schools because all their kids go to private school. So that's a generalization, Tim. And I think in some ways you're right, but there are elected officials who send their kids and their grandkids to public schools, just like there are elected officials who really do use GMH. When I was a high-ranking official in the government, I used GMH. I remember whenever there were a couple of times that coworkers of mine back in the Calvo administration, I think Governor Calvo as well, had to be admitted. They went to GMH as well, and yeah, so. I don't know how it is now, but I have to imagine that there are people who do use the public hospital. Guam Victor asks, whatever happened to that Estevez assault situation? I mean, I guess we can find out. Honestly, I don't really care much about that because not that it's not important. It's just that we're so busy with other things like the Tenorio corruption case. That would require us, Guam Victor, to go and ask the Metro Police Department or the local court system over at Washington, D.C., what's going on over that, and that just takes some time. Pete Santos says, Republican majority looked like they were going to facilitate the new hospital. Yes, it really did look that way. We have wasted years and watched money dwindle because of bickering. Thank God for GRMC. Otherwise, we would really be in deep doo-doo. Yes, Pete, you're absolutely right. Tim Kaut says, use the money to refurbish it. Then when it's time, sell it and use the money to pay down the debt of the new hospital. So at least someone's offering a solution. Senators there. Tim Kaut has an idea for you. Pete Santos says, I don't know the inner workings of GMH, but if Vince Akimoto is correct, most of the money is going to non-essential payroll, as it's a lot of money throughout the government of Guam in payroll for people we know don't deserve that pay, and for contracts that we know are not being performed and we're just political in nature. I'll read all of your other comments. Wow, there's a lot of comments here. So thank you. I just need to get off the air now so I can do all my going to sleep stuff. But I'll read the comments while I'm eating my nightly yogurt with blueberries and honey. and drinking my go to sleep tea. You all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me on this live show. I love you all. Good night, and God bless you.
We got that dynamite. We got that dynamite.
Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.
Dare to try? Something new? Life's too short.
You gotta chill with the snackable drink.
Life is too short. Hey, you gotta shoot.
Mogu Mogu.
Moku moku.